Running your own business can be lonely, finding reliable professionals difficult, and generating new business challenging, but not when you have a business network. NewGen Networking provides its members with new and exciting business opportunities, with the chance to build lasting relationships with vetted businesses who can act as your sales team and solve the issue of who to turn to in your hour of need. With a range of flexible and affordable solutions, NewGen apply tried and tested principles in a modern way to suit today's world. To find the right option for your business, visit newgen-networking.com or call 03333 600 680. NewGen Networking. New business, new contacts, a new generation of networking. You're listening to the NewGen podcast exclusively on the Pod Station. Here is an interview with one of our members from the Vinci Hub.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the NewGen Networking podcast. In fact, it's not just another one, it's the first live networking podcast that we've done of this nature. We've done obviously the weekly interviews where we discuss over sort of a period of 10-15 minutes with local members, but this is a full feature-length one. My name is Matt Pollard and my business is Funky Vibes Marketing. Joining me is my fellow co-host Dave Forrest from Myriad Mortgages. How are we doing, Dave?
I'm great, Mark. It's great to be back in the studio.
It is indeed, isn't it?
We've got our little studio down here in Ellesmere Port, haven't we?
Feels very glamorous.
It's glamorous Ellesmere Port.
And we're joined by another guest, a third member.
We are.
Do you want to introduce?
Yes. Today, folks, we have Emma Hutt from the Word Hut. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Dave.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks.
We don't bite. Don't be nervous.
Yeah, this is your second podcast. It should be. You should be an old hat at it by now.
I haven't done one before.
You did. You did the first ever one where we were all directors over Zoom.
Yeah,
you've done that
we
one.
did.
Yeah. So, no, it is. It's great to be back. It's great to be face to face, and we can ask you loads of questions about your business and tell everybody what you do. Absolutely.
Just to briefly explain what NewGen Network, it's a networking group. So there's a group of businesses. We meet every week. We pass business. We work as a team collectively to try and generate work for one another. We meet at Vauxhall Sports Club every Friday between, I think it's 12:30.
10 and 12.
Yeah, so if you want to book a place on there, if you fancy coming along, you can visit newgen-networking.com. You can find the Vinci Hub. You can see who's already a member. So if you clash with those people, you won't be able to come. But if you don't come along to book, you can book a ticket online. All the available dates are there to be had. If you go onto social media, you can also see what we call the bye-bye box, which is a list of all the businesses where we pass work to who aren't members, because we want to identify where work's going that will be particularly of benefit to people to come and join. What else is there, Dave?
Well, we're very soon launching a Darwin Hub, which is an early morning Friday.
Yes, it's a pre-9 a.m. one.
For all those early birds.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure how I'll focus with that one, but
we'll try.
We might have to take your word for that one, Dave.
Yeah.
It works for some people. Some people like to get things out
Some
of the way.
Some of those trades like want to get done and then get off to work, so it's an ideal time for those. So yeah, well, that's the next little project we've got going.
Are you an early bird, Emma?
Not at all. I'm a total night owl. I read until the early hours and then I can't get up in the mornings.
Oh, there you go then.
Yeah, so, I can sympathise with that.
We'll have our Darwin Hub up and running soon, so we'll give you some more info on that as and when that starts.
And the point of this show is to, each week when we take a member, we just want to discuss their areas of their expertise. Don't we want to pick their brains so they can tell us all about what they do, how they can help people, and that's what we're hoping to do with Emma.
Yeah, well, I think it's just this is a great way just for you, Emma, to tell us about your business and what you do, how you do it, and what sort of businesses you can connect with. So if you give us a little bit of a sort of rundown of what it is you do.
Well, first and foremost, I am a VA, so I do virtual administration for companies. It can be any form of admin. I'll do invoicing, logging invoices, anything really, sending out terms and conditions. Basically anything that somebody can do in an office, I could do virtually.
All the jobs that we put off for tomorrow.
I was just going to say, all the job as doing your work, you don't do.
I tend to find that by the time I'm asked to help, that people are generally drowning in their administration because they just haven't got time for it.
It's one of those things where you put it off today and then it becomes a bigger job tomorrow, and then you put it off tomorrow because it's too big a job to do tomorrow, but then it becomes an even bigger job the day and it snowballs, doesn't it? We've all been there.
So whereas if I jump in and maybe half an hour a day, a couple of hours a week, just helps people keep on top of their paperwork, their inbox, anything that they've missed, things that in their diary that need to be jiggled about, any calls that need to be made. I can do anything for anybody, basically.
And do you find, obviously, I think you've got some people doing that already with you, that they're then free to grow the business? Is that how it sort of works?
Well, that's the idea, to take the pressure off them so that they know that by the time they come to do their books at the end of the year, that everything's in order, and that they don't have to go into their personal time in the evening to catch up with their administration. To use somebody like me just gives them those hours back to focus on their business and have some family life as well. Good work-life balance.
And I suppose with what we've been through over the sort of 18 months, you're ideally set up to do it remotely now, aren't you? A bit more. Maybe people are open to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. Though I don't mind going on site if I need to. I actually prefer to work virtually because the tools that we've got to be able to communicate, whether it's Zoom or by phone or WhatsApp, we can do anything. We can talk about anything. I get little blips through the day from a company that I work for. Sometimes I won't get much notice for what they want to do, but I tend to then reschedule my day a little bit and fit them in, and it just works. It's great, and it allows me to have a family life, to fit in things like the school run and walking the dog, and it just means life is just so much easier.
And sort of knowing you and know the way you work, and I think it's not just about you just doing the work. You have an interest in the things that you get involved in, don't you? And the sort of companies that you work with. Absolutely.
I tend to connect really well with most of the people that I work with, and so we have a good working relationship, and they find me easy to come to ask if there's something else that they need doing. I also have a group of people that I proofread and edit for and help them self-publish their books. I'm actually a trained proofreader. So that part of the job is one of my favourites, to be totally frank, because I just read constantly.
So you're a bookworm.
I always have been.
Yeah.
Since I've been about
and
4 years old.
That's your sort of passion, really, isn't it? Is sort of reading and books. I mean, it's you sort of don't see that bit of, you see a book on the shelf or a book gets published, or and everyone's talking about it on the telly, but you don't see all that work behind that's gone into. Someone's wrote it, but the person who actually looks through it, make sure you'd have to check my books if I wrote a book. But that's a big part of it, isn't it? And make sure the grammar's right.
Absolutely. You do pick up on a lot of grammatical errors when you download ebooks. People have self-published. It doesn't have to be expensive to get that help either. I offer a variety of packages that are affordable, and people can pay in instalments if they want their book proofreading, editing, self-published. I can actually do the whole thing for them, and also connect them to somebody that can do the artwork for their book as well. Artwork's crucial, has to be right. The old adage, I've said it earlier on today, you don't judge a book by its cover, is just not true.
Well, you do, don't you?
Absolutely.
And there's lots of books out there as well. You can get lost in the mass.
Yeah, so you need something that connects automatically. It's eye-catching, it's colourful, it's vibrant, and it actually suits what the book is, so that you look at the front of the book I work quite a bit for a science fiction author, and just looking at the front of his books, you can see the fact that they're science fiction books. So they need to be eye-catching. It is true, I very often, even though I read a lot, I will look at the cover and automatically think, I can't be bothered reading that. So it's
if you don't put a lot of effort into the cover, people assume you haven't put the same amount of effort into the content, which isn't necessarily true, but it's that first impression, isn't it?
Absolutely. A lot of self-publishers get things wrong badly. A lot get it right. There's people, as I said, that offer the same service as me and the service that I offer, that can help them get it right. We can be involved as little or as much as they want. I tend to do the whole process and take my anybody that I proofread and edit for, I take it right through to the point where it's on Amazon. I upload the covers, turn it into an ebook, turn it into a paperback, and I will be offering services to add to other worldwide platforms as well, such as Lulu and Barnes and Noble. They're all very different. The software for uploading the books is very different, but I don't mind. I like a challenge. It's just nice to learn something new, which I tend to do every day, to be fair.
I suppose when you think of like books, you think, oh yeah, that's, a book where you tell a story. But I suppose you can do anything. You can be factual books.
Well, I was just about to say, there's probably everybody at some point thought, I'd like to write a book about that. If that's not necessarily your strength, whether it be you might not be particularly that way inclined, the English language written might not come easily. People like dyslexia, might be very difficult for people to do that kind of a task. So how would you go about solving those problems?
So I get books in all kinds of formats. I've had books that have arrived piecemeal, the chapters out of order. It's been about putting it into order. Some of it's been handwritten, so it's needed to be typed. Some of it's been on voice recording software, so that has to be typed up as well. And then it's just about getting everything right, everything formatted right, and then, as I say, uploaded. But you're right, there are people where English isn't their biggest skill.
Or time as well. I mean, the idea of doing a book but recording myself talking it through,
go for that,
would sound a lot more appealing than sitting and spending countless hours that don't have typing up
writing or typing
a million paragraphs.
I've done that with a couple of books now, and getting it typed up, I have somebody that transcribes for me, but I don't just leave it as the fact they've done the transcription and it's right. When it comes back to me, I 100% proofread and edit. For some clients, I even make the changes and do a bit of ghostwriting. And for other clients, they want it back to see the errors that they've made so that they can learn from those errors. There are many things that you find there and there tend to be the top ones, along with where, and where. But one of the things that I find is quite common is should of. So where it should be should have, should of. So I search all my documents for the common errors.
So are you finding more and more people are speaking, sort of the way they speak or the way they use the phone?
Well, that's a big debate, is that, because the English language has, if you go back 150 years, the English language will be different to what it is now. So is abbreviations, text talk, for example, is that English grammar and literacy in a negative way, or is it just simply the English language gradually evolving? Because the new generation, my nieces and nephews, they're going to probably think that that's the norm.
Well, I think I saw something the other day where they were saying, you could have a whole conversation in emojis. Yeah. And and some people will be able to decipher it.
Whereas we used to have to go and stand in the corner if we used the wrong there or there.
I tell you, the day that I see a book written in emojis, I think it's the day that I retire.
Yeah.
I think you've just got a business idea there.
Oh. That'd be interesting to see.
But I suppose as well as books, it could be leaflets as well, couldn't it? Because businesses produce maybe leaflets that they'll put up online to be sold, or
witness statements, like legal documents, I suppose.
Social media. If you're posting about your business, you're meant to be the authority on your business.
Your
you are meant to be the authority on your business. So if you're posting with spelling and grammatical mistakes, people are going to wonder what other mistakes you make as well.
Well, I don't know whether anyone noticed, but we're in this point where Matt Hancock put his statement out last week. I think in the first line there was a mistake.
Do you know though
you should have sent it to you, Emma?
That predictive text stuff, though, I mean, that drives me insane.
Yeah. And then when you send it, you go, "Oh my god, I look so stupid."
Number of times I read back, or someone tells me about something, and I look at it and I go, "For crying out loud, I know I didn't write that."
Yeah. And also, people use the software where you can speak into your computer, and that is one of the most dreadful things that I've ever come across.
Yeah, well, I used to, when I was a lawyer, I used to use the dragon stuff, but it couldn't do the Yorkshire accent, so I used to give up. I used to have to spend more time training it to know what words it was.
We're only just getting used to it, so God knows how computer
and you'd spend as long editing and copying, proofreading the bloody email you'd dictated than you would have done if you just typed it out yourself.
Yeah, sometimes it's just easier to do things manually. As a proofreader, there are bits of software that help us with our job as well that we can run through to do the initial check. There's things like, probably the Microsoft Word spell checker is good for the basics. I tend to just run through the document with it before I even pick it up and do anything else. There's also a program called Grammarly, which is something that a lot of people say, I just use Grammarly. Well, Grammarly tends to flip between English and American, so it does make changes that you don't really want. It also picks things up that aren't right, so verb tenses, etc. It might try to tell you to put in where realistically you should use was, and it doesn't pick up full stops missing at the end of paragraphs. So there's nothing that beats the human eye to read, and I do 2 proofreads and edits because I do the full works. I do one on screen, so I'm sat in front of my computer and I'll do that, and then I print it all out and I take it away and sit away from my screen, and I read it as if I was reading a book, because I do find still I've missed things. So the paper proofread is so important.
You must have so much patience. I couldn't do that, Mark.
Absolutely. Just a quick apology if you can hear clattering and bashing and what have you. They are cleaning up post-meeting. You can hear the place getting knocked around.
And then obviously you see that book go online and you see the sales. How does that feel when you start?
Well, do they always go online?
Yeah, the majority of them
do.
No,
they do? Is that the way they go?
I've had one that's, we've typed it up, it's been proofread, and the guy who's done it wants to add more information into it. So I contacted him recently because we're like 3/4 of the way through the project, and he said he's just been so busy he's had to put it on the back burner for now. But I'm still there for when he's ready to go ahead. But as I say, I get handed things in plastic bags.
What's the difference then between being published? Like having a publisher or not having a publisher, being self-published, does that I suppose the obvious question is, what's the difference?
So self-published, you promote the book yourself, you publish it yourself through a e-publishing platform like Kindle.
So you create it yourself?
Yeah, so you create the book, you have to source the cover, you have to format it. A lot of people check it themselves because they're not overly bothered and they're just happy with the basic check, and then they'll put it out there. If they start making really good sales, potentially they could get picked up by a publisher. It is difficult to get picked up by a publisher, and the majority of people need an agent. There are some publishers, if you go online it'll say, we're accepting authors now, but there are 3 types. There's e-publishing, self-publishing, which you do yourself. There's traditional publishing, where you get picked up by a publishing house. and they very often give you an advance on the payment for your book if they think that it's going to do well.
Oh, that'd be so dangerous.
Yeah.
Well,
Because you'd never get around to doing the job, would you?
No.
You'd always be able to do it tomorrow,
Yeah.
tomorrow, and then like 2 days before deadline, you're
I
like,
better
poo, I've
write
had
it,
the
yeah.
first
Well,
install.
That's like me when I'm on to do a presentation. I'm up till 2 o'clock in the
Yeah,
morning.
all the best intentions 2 weeks in
Yeah.
advance.
can you imagine then if they forward you to like £20,000 and you've got writer's block and they've got a deadline?
Yeah.
I can imagine it gets quite legal. I've not seen it happen, but I can imagine there is the possibility for that to happen.
Well, J.K. Rowling had that, didn't she, for the 5th book? She
She
had
was on
a
the
horrible
timeline.
writer's block. And and as you can imagine, there was a large fan base who were clawing
Desperate for it.
for that 5th
Yeah.
book.
Well, I think the
And
one,
I'm sure she'd have had an advance of, and it wouldn't have been 20 grand.
No, I don't think so.
and for all the Game of Thrones readers out
Yeah.
there, George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, well, he hit one, didn't he? That's why they had to
Wow.
make up the last
Yeah.
series.
Wow.
And he's nowhere near finishing the next book in the series, and all his fans are online saying, "Come on,
Yeah.
where is it?" So,
So if you take it, I mean, obviously, like I'm thinking of back now of a book that just sort of like exploded, and then obviously created a whole thing. Was like the Dan Brown series with the Da Vinci Code. So will that publisher have sort of like picked that up and gone, right, we'll do all the marketing? Is that what they do then, and then they push it?
they do, and that advance when that book goes on sale. Say it's been 20,000 until that book's made 20,000.
Right.
You don't get any money.
No.
So, but they take care of all the things like the marketing and book signings and things like that.
Because
So
that book came from nowhere, didn't it? And it just sort of like, there was a lot of sort of like, conspiracy theory stuff around it. So it was in the news. So I suppose that did it really good. And then the next couple of books, and then the films and all that. So again, it's another one that just went from nothing to.
Well, it's the same with 50 Shades.
True, yeah.
The 50 Shades.
Oh, well, no, I haven't read.
No.
Neither
Yeah,
have I. Neither have I, to be fair.
I've read 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, 50 Shades are all self-published.
Right.
And
Right, okay.
I think I read Amazon do the look inside on the ebooks. You can actually take a look.
Yeah.
And I think I read about half a page and thought, do you know what, this just isn't for me. So I prefer.
Do you make? I presume you make a bigger cut then if you self-publish. You're not sharing the wealth.
Yes. So it doesn't cost anything apart from your own time and potentially the cover. And
But having to source all the other stuff yourself.
yeah, absolutely. So anything then that you make, apart from the cut that Amazon take or the publishing house take, it's your money.
So I suppose this is where the Amazons of the world have changed things, haven't they? When, again, it's a bit like selling stuff. You can set a business up. You can literally write a book and do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a service which I'll be offering from later in the year, and it's basically called hybrid publishing. So it's a mixture of the vanity publishers that ask you to pay the whole amount and it's a really expensive package, and then they take your book, they sit on it for the proofreading and editing for around a year, and then they publish it, and they also put a demand in your contract that they get the next book that you write, and it's legally binding, so you're kind of stuck with them. So if your first one doesn't work with them, you've got a second one that might not work with them, that you might have just been better off not paying a massive amount of money and doing it yourself. But with the hybrid publishing, I'll be offering an element of the paid for, so you pay for upfront for cover, any marketing, the proofreading and editing on the formatting, etc. But you keep your royalties apart from a very small percent, which will go into a pot to cover things like marketing.
Right.
So my service, I quoted somebody not so long ago. They've been looking at a vanity publisher online, and I think the quote was about £7,000 for the package, and when I quoted him, I think it was about £1,500.
Wow.
So there's a massive difference. You just have to go out there and find the right
And
person.
have you seen a sort of uptick in people writing books as they've been sat at home or stuck in? Have you had more work this year, or what?
I've been busy through lockdown. the uptake in people writing books. Lots of people wrote books through lockdown. Potentially have just saved it on a file on their computer because they don't know what to do with it next. My husband wrote a book during lockdown.
Is he going self-publishing?
Yeah.
I'll be his publisher. It'll be the first crime one that I've done.
Right.
It's quite dark.
Is it about murdering his wife?
Yeah.
Burying the body at the bottom.
It's a revenge thriller. So it's like I said, it's quite dark.
And have you got a book? Because you're checking all these books. Have you got a book to write?
I think we've all got a book in us.
Yeah.
I've started mine about 3 times, just don't have the time to finish it. What I have done is created a series of food journals, so it's a low content publication for people who like to watch what they eat, like to make a note of the exercise that they do, create shopping lists, etc. And that planner, I did that about 2 years ago. It's just been sat on Amazon, and the royalties just come through as and when. But I'm actually in the process of planning another planner. So I quite like doing
Very
it.
meta.
Yeah. It's quite doing the artwork for it myself and doing the layout for it myself. The first time was a real challenge, but now I've got my head around it. I think I could, do quite a few, diary stroke plans.
So again, if businesses want to sort of like come up with some sort of plan for what they do around what clients can do to start, whatever business they do.
Yeah.
If they want to inform clients how to start off, and that's a good way is to publish something maybe on Amazon.
Yeah.
And maybe again whether it's be a leaflet or a downloadable something. So you could help with that, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, low content or small like leaflets, etc. content on Amazon make a lot of money.
Really?
Potentially, as much as some people make with a book.
Yeah.
So
So I suppose it's all about the reach you can get on Amazon, isn't it? And pushing that out.
Amazon also do something called Kindle Unlimited. I pay for my Kindle membership every month. I think it's about £8, and I read so many free books. I mean, you've got to really look to find good quality books that you would actually read. However, for the author, they're fantastic, because it looks like you're giving a free book away. But what happens is that £8 a month that people pay to have that membership, from that a percentage goes into a pot, and it's called a royalties pot. So if you've written a book that's 100 pages long, put it on Kindle Unlimited so people can read it for free. Somebody goes on, downloads it, reads that 100 pages, you get paid a percentage of that pot for every page that people have read. So if you've got a lot of people doing that, you can get quite a decent percentage.
There's a whole new world out
that
there.
Pot it is, yeah.
But it's like the Audible ones. I tend to do audio when I'm not on holiday. When I'm on holiday, I love reading, but I don't have time or the energy for reading generally. So I tend to do audio books while I'm walking the dog or exercising or whatever, and they do sort of the monthly sum.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more expensive, but if you like
it's same principle though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember years ago driving everywhere with my husband, listening to his audiobooks in the car, but they were things like DC, Marvel, so I've listened to a lot of Batman stories.
It's just a good way of, as you say, Mark, if you're too busy to read a book, at least you can get the content, or like you say, we've all been in traffic and stuff like that. I listen quite a lot of the motivational type books and those type of things. They're always on audio, aren't they?
Yeah, I struggle with that, because as much as I should be reading business books, I am the kind of person that likes to read to not so much switch off.
Some people like that stuff, but I'm the same as you. It's you do enough days in the week without then doing more. But there's a huge market for that kind of stuff.
There's only so many times you can be told you're a tiger.
I do it every morning
in the mirror.
In the mirror. But I've got to say that I tend to focus on science fiction and science fantasy. They are what I love to read. I've got hundreds of books, and I tend to read in paperback or hardback. Though over the last few years, because I'm running out of space, I have tended to download on Kindle a little bit more. But yeah, sci-fi, fantasy, anything like that, just love it.
If people want to get in touch with you, if they need help with their books, whatever stage it might be, or as you mentioned at the outset, the admin support, how can they get in touch with you?
At the moment, you can get in touch with me on my email address, which is emma@thewordhutt.co.uk, and Hutt is spelled with 2 T's, as in Jabba the Hutt. And also my mobile number is 07989 185 059. My website's being worked on at the moment.
Fab, you'll have all of the contact details will be in the show notes, so if you didn't catch that, you didn't have a pen to hand, then you can catch them all there. Emma, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, it's been great.
If you want to meet Emma in person, come down to one of our meetings. They're every Friday morning, as we said, 10 a.m. to 12:30. You can go online to NewGen-Networking.com and you can book a place online. It's dead easy to do.
Dead easy. Come along and see us.
Yeah, come meet us in person. Yeah. And if you join as a member, you might also have an opportunity to get on the show,
this
Dave.
Amazing studio.
I know, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Except for the banging.
Well, yeah.
The plates.
Apologies for the banging.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for listening. Dave, pleasure as always.
Great to be back, mate.
Emma, it was lovely to have a chat about all the things that you do.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll catch you again next time, guys. Bye now.
If you would like to visit one of our online or face-to-face hubs, visit newgen-networking.com and book a place. Get social at Network NewGen on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn.